"Dear Santa, please send me a dad." Her letter to Santa ended up on the desk of a lonely billionaire. The letter arrived on Marcus Wellington's desk on a Tuesday morning in early December, tucked between quarterly reports and acquisition proposals. His assistant had placed it there with a note. Thought, "You should see this personally." Marcus picked it up frowning. The envelope was wrinkled, addressed in careful crayon to Santa Claus, North Pole, but someone had redirected it to Wellington Industries corporate headquarters. Inside, on lined paper torn from a child's notebook, were 5 words that stopped his heart. "Dear Santa, please send me a dad." Below the words was a drawing of 3 figures holding hands, a woman, a small girl, and an empty space where a third person should be. Marcus set down his coffee. He was 42 years old, successful beyond measure, and utterly alone in his glass tower overlooking the city. His reflection stared back from the window. A man in an expensive suit who had everything except what mattered. He read the letter again. There was no return address, just a postmark from somewhere in the city. A child's desperate wish, lost in the mail system, landing randomly on his desk like a message in a bottle. His phone buzzed. Another meeting. Another deal. He should throw the letter away, get back to business. Instead, he slipped it into his jacket pocket. That evening, Marcus did something he hadn't done in years. He left the office before dark. He drove through neighborhoods he'd forgotten existed, past row houses with Christmas lights and families visible through windows. Somewhere in this city was a little girl who'd written that letter, and for reasons he couldn't explain, he needed to find her. He hired a private investigator that night. "I need discretion," Marcus said. "Find out where this letter came from." It took 3 days. The investigator called with an address in a modest neighborhood on the south side. Single mother, works 2 jobs. Daughter's name is Emma, 5 years old. Marcus sat with that information. He could write a check, have it delivered anonymously. That's what the old Marcus would have done. Money solved problems from a safe distance. But something had shifted when he read that letter. He thought of his own childhood, raised by nannies while his parents built empires. He thought of the decades he'd spent chasing success, only to realize he was running from loneliness. On Thursday evening, he drove to the address. Snow was starting to fall, gentle and persistent. The neighborhood was modest but proud. Houses with small yards and cars that had seen better years. He found the number. A duplex with a wreath on the door and a single string of lights across the porch. Marcus sat in his car, suddenly uncertain. What was he doing? He couldn't just knock on a stranger's door because their daughter had written a letter to Santa. But as he reached for the ignition, the door opened. A woman stepped out, blonde hair pulled back, wearing a cream sweater, and looking exhausted in a way Marcus recognized. She was carrying grocery bags, struggling with the door, and a little girl bundled in a brown coat. The child, Emma. She had wispy blonde hair and solemn eyes that seemed too serious for 5 years old. Marcus got out of the car before he could think better of it. The woman looked up, startled. Her expression shifted quickly to caution. A strange man approaching at dusk. Marcus realized how this looked. "I'm sorry," he said, stopping several feet away, hands visible. "My name is Marcus Wellington. I know this is going to sound strange, but I received a letter to Santa that somehow ended up on my desk." The woman's eyes widened. She glanced down at Emma, who was watching Marcus with curious intensity. "I'm Claire," she said slowly. "Claire Morrison? And this is Emma." "I didn't mean to intrude," Marcus continued. "I just needed to know she was okay." The letter, it said something that stayed with me. Claire's expression softened slightly, though wariness remained. "Emma writes a lot of letters. I mail them to the North Pole every year. I didn't know where they actually ended up. This one ended up with me." Marcus pulled the letter from his pocket, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Emma tugged on Claire's sleeve. "Mama, is he from Santa?" Claire looked torn between protecting her daughter and acknowledging the kindness in this stranger's gesture. Snow collected on their shoulders as they stood in the growing darkness. "Why don't you come inside?" Claire said finally. "Just for a moment. It's too cold to talk out here." The apartment was small but warm, filled with second-hand furniture arranged with care. A modest Christmas tree stood in the corner, decorated with handmade ornaments. Marcus saw the life. Claire had built for her daughter with limited means but unlimited love. Emma shed her coat and climbed onto the couch, studying Marcus with open curiosity. Claire made tea, her movements efficient from years of managing everything alone. Her father left when she was 6 months old, Claire said quietly, standing in the kitchen doorway. Emma doesn't remember him, but she sees other kids with their dads at school, at the park. This year, she started asking questions I didn't know how to answer. Marcus nodded. My father was there physically, but never really present. I grew up in a house full of people and felt completely alone. Something in his voice made Claire look at him more closely. She saw past the expensive suit to the loneliness underneath. You didn't have to come here, she said. You could have just thrown the letter away. I know, but something about it reached me in a way nothing has in years. I've spent 20 years building a company, making money, and I realized I don't have a single person in my life who actually matters. Emma spoke up from the couch. Do you like hot chocolate? Marcos smiled. I do. We're having some. You can stay if you want. Claire caught his eye, and something unspoken passed between them. An understanding of loneliness, of doing your best when life doesn't turn out as planned. Marcus stayed for hot chocolate. Then he stayed for dinner because Emma insisted, and Claire didn't object. They ate simple pasta at a small table, and Emma talked about kindergarten and her favorite books and whether reindeer could really fly. For the first time in years, Marcus felt something ease in his chest. He made Emma laugh with a silly voice. He helped Claire clear the dishes. He sat on their worn couch and listened to Emma read from her favorite storybook, sounding out words with fierce concentration. When it was time for Emma's bedtime, she looked up at Marcus. Are you coming back? Claire started to intervene, but Marcus answered honestly. Would that be okay with you? Emma nodded solemnly. We could do Christmas things. Mama works a lot, but maybe you could come sometimes. After Emma went to bed, Marcus and Claire sat in the living room, speaking quietly. I don't want to intrude on your life, Marcus said. But I'd like to help if you'd let me. Not with money, though I have plenty of that if you need it. I mean help by being present, by spending time with Emma, with both of you. Claire studied him for a long moment. Why, you don't know us? Because that letter reminded me that all the success in the world means nothing if you're alone. Because I have the chance to matter to someone, maybe for the first time in my life. And because Emma asked Santa for a dad, and somehow that wish landed on my desk. And I don't think that was an accident. Claire's eyes filled with tears. We don't need charity. It's not charity. I need this as much as you do, maybe more. Over the following weeks, something unexpected happened. Marcus started leaving work at reasonable hours. He showed up at Claire's apartment with groceries, with books for Emma, with his time and attention. They decorated cookies. They went to see Christmas lights. He taught Emma to build a snowman in the small yard. Claire watched him with Emma and saw something genuine. Marcus didn't perform kindness. He absorbed it, like a man who'd been thirsty his whole life finally finding water. They talked in the evenings after Emma went to bed, sharing stories of their different but equally lonely paths. Claire spoke of struggling to make ends meet, of the fear that she wasn't enough for her daughter. Marcus talked about the emptiness of success, of realizing too late that he'd traded connection for achievement. I spent 20 years proving I could succeed without anyone, Marcus said one night, and I finally have proof. Turns out it feels terrible. Christmas Eve arrived with fresh snow. Marcus picked up Claire and Emma in his car, driving them through the decorated city to his penthouse. Emma's eyes went wide at the tall building, the elevator that went so high her ears popped. Do you live in the clouds? She asked. Sometimes it feels that way, Marcus said. But I think I'd rather live closer to the ground, where people are. His apartment was minimalist and cold, beautiful but impersonal. Emma walked through it quietly, then turned to him. You need a Christmas tree. Marcus knelt down to her level. You're right, I do. Will you help me pick one out tomorrow? Emma nodded seriously. And decorations. You need lots of decorations. Claire watched this exchange with tears in her eyes. She'd been so afraid of letting someone into their small, safe world. But Marcus had earned his place there. Not with grand gestures, but with consistent presence. That evening, they had dinner together at Marcus's big empty table. Afterwards, Emma climbed into his lap and announced she had something to tell Santa. "What's that?" Marcus asked gently. "I want to tell him thank you." "Because you came. Not like I expected, but you came anyway." Marcus looked at Claire over Emma's head. She smiled, understanding what he couldn't say with Emma listening. That he'd been lost until a child's letter found him. That sometimes the people who need saving aren't the ones you'd expect. "Can I tell you something?" Marcus said to Emma. "I wrote a letter once too. I didn't send it to Santa, but I wrote it anyway. It said, 'I wish I had a family.' And somehow, my wish got answered too." Emma hugged him tight. Claire reached across the table and took Marcus's hand. It wasn't a fairy tale. Claire still worked hard. Marcus still had responsibilities. But they built something together in the weeks and months that followed. Marcus found an apartment closer to Claire's neighborhood, something warmer and more human than his tower. He cut back his hours at work, discovering that his company ran fine without him micromanaging every detail. He showed up for Emma's kindergarten performances. He held Claire's hand during walks in the park. He learned to braid hair and read bedtime stories with all the voices. He discovered that love wasn't something you earned through achievement. It was something you received by being present. One evening in spring, as they walked together through their neighborhood, because it was their neighborhood. Now? All three of them? Emma skipped ahead while Marcus and Claire followed hand in hand. "Do you ever think about that letter?" Claire asked. "About what would have happened if you'd just thrown it away?" Marcus watched Emma chase a butterfly across new grass. "Every day. That letter saved my life, even though I didn't know I needed saving." "She still writes to Santa sometimes," Claire said softly. "New letters about new wishes." "What does she ask for now?" "Last week she wrote, 'Dear Santa, thank you for my dad.' Can we keep him forever?" Marcus stopped walking. Claire turned to face him, and he saw in her eyes what he'd been too afraid to hope for. "I'd like that," he said. "Forever sounds about right." Emma ran back. To them, breathless and laughing, grabbing both their hands. They walked home together through the lengthening shadows. Three people who'd all been incomplete, finding wholeness in each other. That night, after Emma was asleep, Marcus sat at the desk in his new study. He pulled out a piece of paper and wrote carefully, "Dear Emma, thank you for teaching me what success really means. Thank you for showing me that the greatest achievement isn't building empires, but building a life that matters. Thank you for the letter that changed everything. Love, Dad." He folded it carefully and placed it in her lunchbox, where she'd find it tomorrow. Then he went to find Claire, to hold her close and marvel at the miracle of second chances. Sometimes the letters we send into the void find exactly who needs to receive them. Sometimes a child's simple wish can save not just herself, but a lonely man in a tower who'd forgotten how to hope. Sometimes family isn't what you're born into, but what you build together, one day at a time, with love and presence and the courage to answer when someone asks for help. And sometimes Santa delivers exactly what you need, even if it comes in a form you never expected. The snow fell softly outside, beginning another winter, but inside there was only warmth. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories about the unexpected, connections that change our lives. Leave a comment below telling us about a time when kindness found you when you needed it most. Your story might inspire someone who needs hope today.